Hey, welcome to Tabletop Skirmish Games. I'm Lee, and in this video I'll show you how I made some Swampy Wasteland bases for my Chaos Warhounds. Here's the Chaos Warhound that we'll be doing the bases for in this video, and you can see it's a nice size oval base, so we've got lots of room to play around with, and we're going to use some Gorilla Super Glue. And the first time I'm going to try out this new Nurgle's Rot, this technical paint, and then we're going to use a black and white layer paint, and I changed the contrast paint to Darkoath Flesh. And then for the basing materials, I've got some different grade stones. I just picked these up. They're like little tiny bits of gravel from a lane down the road from me, and so I just grabbed a handful, and that's pretty much going to last me years. And it's got all these different grades and sizes. And then we've also got some budgie sand, which is really great, a really fine sand. So we'll be using that too. And to start with, we're going to take some Gorilla Super Glue and just place some dots on the base. And this is where we're going to fix some of the larger stones. And I always start with the larger stones and fix them in place first. And then next to those, I choose like a size down and put that next to it. And I'm looking to place these stones around the base just so it looks nice. I'll usually go in like threes or keep to an odd number. Sometimes 2 works, but mostly an odd number. It just looks better. And so I'm moving over to the other side and I'm putting a dot more glue on there. And then we're going to add another larger stone. And then, so the idea is to have them in little groups. You have a big stone with some smaller ones around it. And that's going to look nice and natural. And if you don't have little bits of gravel like this, you could use anything like cork or even trim down some bits of sprue and kind of trim it up so it's kind of got some nice angles on it, and then use those as rocks instead. But if you can get hold of some gravel or even some earth and dry it out in the oven, that tends to have some nice chunky bits in like this, and then the finer stuff, and that works okay too. But you can see here I'm putting a few more there in the front, and then I'm just having a look, just weighing it up to see if it looks right. And then we've gone for like 3 different sets, but I'm just going to add a little bit more of the smaller, finer stones here to this little section. It just needs to break it up a little bit more. And there we go, that looks better. And that's the stones fixed. So now I'm going to move on to the next step and take some Gorilla Wood Glue. And I use this instead of PVA glue. I find it sets a lot quicker and dries quicker, but it's also really strong. And I just like the way it works, so it's really nice. And I'm giving this a nice spread all over the base now with a toothpick, and I'm just being careful as I get to the miniature that I don't get it on the area I'm going to be painting later on. And I've chose to do it this way round for this video, so I've done the base without painting the miniature, but because of the nature of these miniatures and how this one especially is jumping, I wanted to fix it to the base before I made it this time. And some of the other videos I've done, like with the Scions of the Flame, I made the bases first and then the miniatures, and I painted them separately and then I glued them together. So you could do that here, but I just find this going to be a lot stronger gluing it directly to the base like this. And also I'm in a bit more of a rush to get these done than I was with the Scions of the Flame, so I'm probably not going to be playing with these too much in Warcry, but I'll be using them as thralls in some games and some battles. But yeah, I didn't want to spend too long. I just found this is a nice simple technique that would get them tabletop ready really quickly. Right, so now once that glue's on, I'm going to take that budgie sand, and this is really fine, and I'm just going to sprinkle it all over the entire base there. And you'll notice when I was putting that glue on, I left some areas without any glue, so almost like little craters, and we'll come to that later on in the video as to why I did that, but because we're going to put the Nurgle Rot in there. But here we are, I'm just sprinkling it, making sure it's all covered, then giving it a little tap, that gets rid of the excess, and there you can see that's all on there now, and that's going to take about 20 to 30 minutes to dry. And this glue's really strong, so it says on the bottle that the glue is stronger than the actual wood you glue it to. So yeah, really strong. But here I'm just layering up a little bit more around the areas where I'm going to put that Nurgle's Rot, and just putting a little bit more. This is going to give us like a little deeper crater, and then we can get more of the technical paint in there. And there you can see that gives us a bit more height, a bit more texture, and just adds to the variety of the base. When I did this stage, I didn't wait for the first stage to dry, and as long as you're careful with that toothpick and don't put any pressure, then you can do this second layer, no problem. and then just leave it 20-30 minutes for the whole thing to dry. And here I'm not going all the way around the edge of this little crater because I just want it to kind of bisect on the edge of the base, just to, again, a bit more visually pleasing. And now we're moving on to the Abbaddon Black, and this is a base paint, and I've wet this down with a fair bit of water because I want it to seep into all the recesses and get in amongst all that fine sand. And this is completely dry now, so I left it a good 30 minutes, and now I'm going back and I'm going to paint all over with this black paint. If you use PVA glue, it can take a lot longer to dry, and especially if it's kind of not too warm where you're doing it, so just be aware of that. But this wood glue is great, and a bottle of this wood glue is going to last you, I think it would last forever, to be honest. There's so much in there. It's like 532 mils in a bottle, so that's a lot of wood glue, and it's perfect for doing stuff like this. I just think it's really strong. So here we go, I'm going over everything, and I'm even going to paint inside the little craters I made, so give everything a nice coat there. And this has already been sprayed with a primer too. Right, so now once that black's dried, I took some Averdale Sunset, another base paint, and I'm just going to paint inside the little craters. And I was watching a few videos about this technical nurgle's rot paint, and when it dries you can sometimes see through it if it's not too thick, so I want a little bit of that yellow to come through, and it'll be nice and gross, and I think that'll contrast nicely with the colours I'm going to use when I paint the Chaos Warhounds. So I'm just filling in all these holes. I'm just going to give one coat of this Averdale Sunset and a nice thick coat. I didn't wet this down, just straight in, and that's going to seal that, and then once that's dried we can move on to the next stage then. But these base paints don't take that long to dry, but I made sure it was thoroughly dry before I did move on to the next stage. And there you can see that's all done now, and in those little craters. So now I'm taking some ceramite white, and we're going to do some dry brushing now, and I've got a very vegan makeup brush, and this is really soft, and this is really good for doing dry brushing, so I can definitely recommend getting some makeup brushes. And I put some paint on the bristles, and I work that paint into the bristles, really pushing it in, and then just using a paper towel I get rid of as much paint as I can, so this is really dry, and but then we can just get a nice small amount of paint at a time, and then we've got lots of control when we apply it to the base. And I'm starting off really gently here, so I'm trying to avoid the miniature. It doesn't matter at this stage if I did get any on the miniature by mistake, because we haven't painted it yet, but I'm still trying to avoid it. Just using gentle strokes, because I don't know how much paint exactly is on the brush, so I'm just being careful not to oversaturate it with the white. And then once I'm confident and got a good feel for how much paint's there, I can be a bit more vigorous with that dry brush and certainly get more on the raised areas of those rocks. But also underneath I want to keep it in shadow, so I'm not too worried about that. But that's the kind of look we're going for. And again, this is just a real quick, simple technique. So once that's dried, I took some contrast Darkoath flesh, and I put this all over the entire base except for the areas that I painted with the Averdale Sunset. And I haven't gone too thick with this, I just want it to be a subtle shade that we're putting on. And I tried some other colours. I tried that snakebite leather, but I didn't like the look of it. I think it clashed with the colours I used for the miniatures. So I tried out this Darkoath flesh, and I think this worked really nicely. And it's rather than just being a grey black base, it gives us a little bit of brown, tiny bit of orange in there, so that works really nicely. And so I'm giving it a good coat all over. And this idea of doing a base coat, then a dry brush highlight, and then using the contrast paints as a colour or shade over the top, I think this is something I'm using for a lot of the miniatures that I want to do a bit quicker. I think it's a great technique, and you can get some real quick results and get your miniatures tabletop ready really fast. And then, I mean, all up doing 10 of these and painting the miniatures, it didn't take me long, maybe 5 or 6 hours total, and that includes all the drying time. It's a really fast process. But now it's time to take that nurgle's rot and this stuff. I was really interested to see how this worked, and I was watching a video by Games Workshop with Duncan doing the painting, and he suggested doing it in layers. You get a better effect rather than trying to put it on really thickly. So I've done that. I'm going to go for a couple of coats, and so I'm putting that on. Make sure it covers the whole area that I've covered with that Averdale Sunset, and then a little bit more outside of that. And this paint, once it dries, it's going to retract a little bit, and so it's going to come away from the edges. So I'm almost going up the sides of those little craters a little bit, just in anticipation of that retraction. And I'm being quite generous with the amount of paint I'm putting on. So although we're going to do a couple of layers, I'm still using it straight out of the pot, not watering it down, and giving it a nice generous coat. And then once that's completely dried, we take that nurgle's rot again and we add another coat. Now it looks wet because you get a real glossy effect from this, but this is completely dry now. And then I'm going over it again with a nice, same amount, nice thick generous coat again, and going up the edges of those craters, because again it's going to retract. And we'll see how much of that yellow is going to come through once these two coats have dried. And while that drying, I took some military green, and this is a great rich colour from Vallejo. And then I took some blue tack, popped that on the end of the makeup brush, and then I fixed the base to the blue tack. And this helps just spin the model while I paint the base. And this is a real nice green. When it sets, it goes a bit darker, and I think that's really going to offset that nurgle's rot really well. And so I'm just spinning the brush. So I'm trying to keep my brush almost in the same place, but spinning that makeup brush, and then that's giving me a lot of control, almost working as like a little mini turntable. And then I'm giving that a nice thick coat all around. And once that first coat is completely dry, I go over it again with a second coat of the military green. And any dark green is going to work, I think, like this. You could even use a dark brown, but I thought the green worked really nicely. I think this is going to be a different contrast to the other miniatures I've based previously. And there we are, you can see up close that nurgle's rot is completely dry. And so we're going to do another stage now. We'll take some winter tufts and some little tweezers, and I'm going to pick up a tuft, pop a little bit of glue on it, and this bit's a bit fiddly, and so here we go. I'm putting a little bit of glue on, and then I didn't have a good enough grip, so you've really got to grip these things. But there we go, that's got a tiny bit of glue, and I'm just going to pop that in place, and then use my tweezers to push it down, make sure it gets a good contact, and then just fan it out a little bit, and then that's going to take not long at all, maybe 10-20 seconds to be firm, and so I can really push that in then, and then tease those tufts out. And I'll put another one on the other side, but this time I just put some glue on the base instead of being too fiddly with the little tuft. And you can see I picked one up, but another one's come with it, so these are a bit fiddly, these tufts. But I'm sticking that onto the glue and then using my tweezers to really push it into place. And there we are. There you can see that's all in place now and all looking good. But there's one final stage I want to do on that nurgle's rot just to make it pop a bit. So I took some deep yellow, another paint by Vallejo, and I'm just putting a couple of little tiny dots on each of the little puddles. And I think just this little touch is quite quick. This is going to add to it, and it's a nice way to finish it off. You could put a little bit of white under there and then the yellow, but I'm just going with yellow. And there we are. You can see that just act like a little bit of a bubble is almost coming to the surface. And that's us finished. So that's all the base completed. And here we go. You can see the model there now needs to be painted. And I'll show you some pictures of what that looks like next. But you can see this base has worked. I'm really pleased how it turned out. Nice, quick and easy. Everything's really cheap to use. And that nurgle's rot, I was really happy with that. And here's the miniature that I painted. And I've gone for a really quick paint with these, with some contrast paints. And I wanted to go for like a blacky blue and pink, and then that green's going to contrast against that. And they're going to work nice together. But again, just tabletop ready. That's all we're looking for here. And so I'm really happy that the level we got from these effects. Let me know what you think in the comments below. It'd be great to hear your feedback and thoughts. And I hope this video is helpful and giving you a little insight into how I make the bases for the miniatures. Look out for the video where I paint these Chaos Warhounds, and you can see how I've done that with just literally 4 or 5 paints to get a nice effect. And here you can see one of them in comparison with one of the Sylvaneth fighters. And that video will be up on the channel soon as well with the bases. I've gone for a forest base and like an autumn look for the Sylvaneth. So that'll be coming really soon. I'll put links to everything I used in this video in the description below, and there'll be affiliate links to Element Games, and they won't cost you anything extra, but they could save you up to 20% on all the Army Painter, Vallejo and Games Workshop products. And for every sale made through an affiliate link, I get a small commission, and that's going to help me create many more videos like this, so thanks so much for that support. I hope this video was helpful. Thanks so much for watching, Please like if you like it, subscribe for more videos like this, and don't forget to hit the notification bell to join me next time on Tabletop Skirmish Games.